morning.
Good morning.
You ready?
Yes.
Love that song. Love Daniel Nahmod.
You're going to need a mic.
Oh yes. I'm under tutelage. Don Shaw, my buddy Don, said, you know, you're not very good with that mic. You need to wear your headset, and I don't like that headset because it's so free and uncomfortable. So he said, I said, Don, I'd rather use the mic. He said, well, you got a lot to learn about using the mic because sometimes you sit around and talk. And he's right. He's right. So he said, I'll show you a trick. He used to be in the business of setting up for his wife at one time, and she had a band, and Don did all those setting up stuff. So he said, hold your elbow in close. Go like this. So if I go like this, but he told me to loosen up too. So I gave him permission. If I'm wandering with the mic, it was funny. A couple weeks ago, I spoke and people said, Mike, Michael, Mike. Yes. So anyway, Don's got permission to critique me and guide me along the way. So I've been really into forgiveness more on a deeper path than what I think I've been before. And one of the things responsible is this Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. And it's an incredible book, just an incredible book. We experienced the book before, Natalie and I, but I'm rereading it because it's got so much good in it. Anyway, I've asked my higher self, to help me, to guide me, to lead me in the opening my hearts and mind to forgiving anybody, everybody I've ever had contact with in my past that I need to forgive. And I've been through this on a conscious level, thinking, well, bring to my mind, and I did, and I got through a lot. But this past, lately, I've been praying, and well, you got to be careful what you pray for, because I have had just thoughts of people coming into my mind. This morning, I was raised in a small town, population 800, and we had Dr. Felshu there. I couldn't even remember his name if I tried. But there was an instance where, because of some thing that happened when he took my tonsils out and some remarks he made and what have you, and I didn't realize that I just didn't like that guy. I hated him, and every time his voice came up, and this is, I'm not that old, but I'm going to be 80 in 6 months. But I thought, wow, why would he come into my mind? What? And then it hit me. Yeah, I was mad at him because he told me to go to school earlier than what I wanted to. He said, "You're going to be fine. Go back to school." My mother said, "Oh, good." And I said, "Oh, no." I was on this kick where I thought I was going to get out of school. Anyway, something just small like that. Now, why do I need to remember that? I don't have any answers. But before I get on, my thoughts here came to Dad, Nate Lehman, who made his transition in August, and he was, he had, like all of us, good moments, bad moments in between. But I was remembering such wonderful moments and a lot of fun that we used to have. We remember the laughter, don't we, Mom? Remember the laughter and the jokes. He was always telling a joke. But he would tell you the same joke the next day, and it was like, I tried to be nice. Oh, that's a funny. After a while, I said, Nate, I've heard that before. He said, well, if you heard it before, then raise 2 fingers, like, I've heard it twice. Okay, well, good, we'll try that. But we found ourselves going like this, Nate. And with the deepest love. And so there was a thing about hearing aids. And Nate would always lose his, and when he did, he had a lot of trouble hearing. But I remember he used to talk to Mom about, you need a hearing aid too, kind of projecting that. And I came across a little story here that, so Nate Lehman feared that his wife wasn't hearing as well as she used to. So he thought she might need a hearing aid. Not sure how to approach her, he called the family doctor to discuss the problem, and the doctor told him there's a simple informal test that the husband could perform to give the doctor a better idea about the hearing loss. Here's what you do, said the doctor. Stand about 40 feet away from Kathy, and in a normal conversational speaking tone, ask her a question and see if she hears you. If not, go to 30 feet, then 20 feet, and so on until you get a response. Well, that evening, Kathy was in the kitchen cooking dinner, and Nate was in the den. He said to himself, well, I'm about 40 feet away. Let's see what happens. Then in a normal tone, he asks, honey, what's for dinner? No response. So Nate moves closer to the kitchen, about 30 feet from his wife, and repeats, honey, what's for dinner? No response. Next, he moves into the dining room when he's about 20 feet away from Kathy, and he says, honey, what's for dinner? No response. So he walks up to the kitchen door about 10 feet away, and he says, honey, what's for dinner? No response. So he walked right up behind her and said, Kathy, what's for dinner? And she said in an exasperated voice, Nate, for the 5th time, I told you chicken. So what we project upon others is what we experience within ourselves. So let me get a little bit more organized here. So you notice, I think I'm kind of conspicuous, we have 2 jars of rice. Now, Jerry Packey isn't here, doggone it, and I wanted him to be here because we did this when in our beginning, when we came in, we did this little experiment. How many have heard of Dr. Emoto? And he had, oh good, because we're going to have a little video on it. Well, we have 2 containers of rice, cooked at the same time, same, except on the outside, we have some positive statements on this one. We'll get more into this later. And some very negative processes on these. So we're going to give everybody a chance to get involved in this little experiment. So, forgiveness. I just have done so much in my life when I look back and to think of the situations, and they keep coming to me. And I'm so grateful, but sometimes they come to me and I get down on myself. And I remember people that I've hurt with my words and my even thoughts and actions. And I find myself going, oh, feeling that experience. And some of this happened decades and decades ago. But I never healed them because I have those same feelings like, why did I say that? And I remember the hurt on some people's faces. And remember the response. One person broke down and cried because of my unkind words and big mouth. And I was thinking, man, I wish I could run into this person to say, hey, I'm sorry. But I doubt if I ever will. I think she's actually absolutely past anyway. And Natalie and I learned something a long time ago about forgiveness, about radical forgiveness. And we come into this plane and we think we're alone. Our ego tells us that we're separate from God and that God is mad at us and we can feel guilty and all the pain that goes along with that. That's the ego speaking. But if we get in touch with our higher self, because our higher self, the Christ in you, Paul said, your hope of glory, is constantly, always with us. Not only that, we came into this incarnation as a soul group. We're part of a group. And this soul group has been with us since eons. And they've come in and we've experienced them as friends, experienced them as parents, siblings, enemies, and we continue to come back together. Why? It's a mission. We all have a mission to learn to love unconditionally and to forgive unconditionally, radical forgiveness. And I remember this one person that I'm going like this for Don. I remember this person who...
Much better.
Well, thank you. Have I passed the test? I love you guys. So, I couldn't forgive this guy no matter how hard I tried, because I'm not going to go into it again, but I told the story a couple weeks ago. But I just hated, I vehemently hated this person. How dare he do all this stuff? He tried to get me killed, and long story. Because I fell into the victim consciousness. And all I could think about was, how dare he do this to me? What have I done to him? What have I done? Poor me. My God, how could he have done that? Couldn't he see my sweet little smiley face? No, he couldn't. So what Natalie and I learned is to, when we can't forgive someone, we go to, from our higher selves, the Christ within us, the higher part of us, the God self of us. We connect with that. And then we ask our higher self to get in touch with that other person's higher self. Of course, higher self knows all about us. All the warts, and all the good stuff, all the negative stuff, from eons ago. And our higher self never judges us, never has any unforgiving thoughts, nothing but love, adoration, unconditional love, radical love. And if we go with a pure heart, as pure as we can get into time, and be very willing to forgive, and we can say, my higher self, that bigger part of Barry than Barry has here on this plane. So I go to a higher self, and I say, please, I want to forgive. I'm willing. You have to use your power of will. I'm willing to forgive this other person. I believe, help mine unbelief. Remember that? But I believe you're here, and I believe you hear me, and so I can't, I need your help. I can't do this. So would you please go to the other person's higher self and speak with, and absolutely it'll happen every single time without a doubt. It's absolute. You have to have faith in that. And if you can't have faith in that, try it. Fake it till you make it if you have to. But talk to your higher self all the time. When we pray, we're not praying to some God way out there, some capricious God who judges us. That's an old God. That God doesn't exist. But your God that you speak to is represented by your higher self. And your higher self will be with you constantly, always, never leave you. That is the Christ in you. That's the Christ that Jesus said, I will send the Holy Spirit, and he will guide you. That is our higher self, our Holy Spirit. And if you're sincere and you really want that to happen, it'll really, really happen. And I did this recently with this person that I hurt. Again, I don't remember her last name, but it was just a tirade of judgmental, angry thoughts that I hurled at her. And when she cried, when we do that, when we justify those angry words, part of this is good. My God, she'll know, or he'll know, or things will get better now. But it doesn't work that way, because of the cause and effect processes in divine love. Because whatever we give whatever we give out, negative, positive, whatever have you, we will get back. There's a cause and effect. It's law. It's spiritual law. It has to happen. And so I had a tinge of that when I thought about this person that I just spoke about. And this is, I was, 25, 30 years old. And the pain that I felt afterwards was really, really strong. And I went to my higher self, and I did what I just told you. And I felt like on a higher level, whether she's on this plane anymore or not, on a higher level, she heard me, and whether she did or not, my heart felt better. I thought, wow. And I couldn't think of any or feel, when I think about her from now on, I don't feel that tinge. It's gone. It's done. So I know that forgiveness has taken place. My point is, if you have trouble forgiving someone, and especially yourself, go to your higher self. Connect with the higher self of other people, and let them do the work. Trust your higher self will do the work. You know why? Because you deserve it, and you can't afford not to. Because our thoughts, all of our thoughts, impress, first of all, our own bodies. if you heard of Dr. Emoto, we're going to show a couple of slides here, a short video, 2 or 3 minute videos, on what happens with the power of thought. Now, Dr. Emoto, for those who aren't familiar, he was a scientist, and he wanted to teach the power of thoughts on our own bodies, on other people's bodies, and so he set up this experiment. He got water, and then he would freeze droplets of water, flash freeze them, and look under them on an electron scanning microscope. And so if we can pull up one of these, so it'll be self-explanatory once you see. Oh, good, thank you. Yes, okay. Well, you can see that, and so this is what, check that over, and this is what instantaneous thoughts do to droplets of water under an electron microscope. That's what they look like. You make me sick, evil, polluted water before prayer, polluted water after prayer. You fool, peace, I love you, angel, thank you, wisdom, truth, and eternal. And jumping back to this. So what we did. Oh, thank you. Sorry, online people. There you go. Feel better? So anyway, we did this experiment and it worked perfectly. We're going to try it again. So we pass these, we put these little notes on it. It says mean, rage, evil, anger, cancer, sickness, hell. And this one here, Christ, beauty, love, goodness, light, God, health. And then we passed it around, and there's 2 ways to do it. You want to explain it what they are? Hold the mic. I'll go in.
So, when we did this experiment before, I remembered that what we were doing was we were living in an RV at the time, and we had the jars in our RV, and so every day we would speak to both of the jars. And that what I remember is that I felt really guilty about the mean things that I was saying to a jar of rice. And I decided that, if we did this in the future, I would do it a different way. I don't want to send bad, negative energy out at all, right? And, sometimes I'm triggered and I do, but then I regret it, and so I would not consciously do that. So what we're thinking about trying this time is to release, as we're holding the jar, looking at the jar, thinking about the jar, to release that which is within us that we know is not serving us, to think about the things in the world that we know are not serving the world, and to release them into the jar. So it doesn't have to be an angry, experience for anyone. And then simply thinking of and holding and sending energy of light and love and all the things that we've already pasted on here, but all that is within us that is good, to send that great energy. And then we'll see over time. How many days do we do?
Well, we did it, I think, for a week or two. A week or two that we did. Anyway, what happened was, just like Dr. Emoto's experience, the jar with the negativity addressed to it, or programmed into it, whatever you want to do, turned black. And it got moldy. And it turned into a black, ugly mesh. The good jar, I'll call that the good jar, and the bad jar, stayed white. Weeks in that thing, not refrigerated, just was just as white as it looked right here. And so it was this proof of that. You project, and when we got it home, I took the jar aside and I cussed this guy out. Man, I just took all my stuff. How dare you? And it actually affected the rice. And this is what happens. We're 60 to 70% water. And so when we think all these negative thoughts, we are attacking ourselves. We are attacking ourselves, our molecules, the atoms. And when we do that to someone else, not only does it affect them if they accept that negativity. That's a big thing. You don't have to get mad at someone for projecting their stuff on you, as long as you don't accept it. Well, you don't know what's going on in my life, so I know you're projecting, you're judging yourself, but I don't accept that. But if we say, oh my God, how could you do that to me? Then you're accepting that, and it's affecting you in a major way. So we're going to run this little, if you will, please.
In this experiment, Dr. Emoto's researchers used a glass of Tokyo tap water, which seems to be unable to form crystals, and performed a test. Participants placed the glass in the center of their circle and sent gratitude to the water. Studying the water under the microscope, they started to see a crystal formation. Increased magnification showed the symmetry of the crystal, revealing how the tap water was transformed by the gratitude sent by the group. The crystal continued to grow, expressing the energies received. The tap water from Tokyo finally produced a beautiful crystal.
It was interesting to see children so completely astonished after they witnessed the difference in Tokyo tap water, before and after they sent the prayer. Their mothers were kind of skeptical before this experiment. But afterwards, they said, we really have to believe it.
I guess that's it. That's all right.
This next series of photographs are the work of Japanese researcher Mr. Masaru Emoto from his book, The Message from Water. Mr. Emoto's work provides factual evidence that human vibrational energy, thoughts, words, ideas, and music affect the molecular structure of water. Please remember that water comprises over 70% of a mature human body and covers the same amount on our planet. Water is the very source of all life. This photo shows the beautifully formed geometric design of the Yushi Spring water. This next photo is from the Shimanto River, the last clean spring in Japan. Notice the extraordinary geometric forms. The fact that the molecular structure of water can be affected by our consciousness, our intent, and our sounds is extremely important. This photo is from the Mount Cook Glacier in New Zealand. Mr. Emoto has been visually documenting these molecular changes in water by means of his photographic techniques. He freezes droplets of water, then examines them under a dark field microscope that has photographic capabilities. His work clearly demonstrates the diversity of the molecular structure of water and the effects of the environment upon the structure of the water. This photo is from the fountain in Lourdes, France. This photo is from contaminated water from the Yodo River in Japan. In this photo, we can compare the contaminated water with clean stream water. Look at the difference. Mr. Emoto decided to see what effects music would have upon the structure of water. He placed distilled water between two speakers for several hours while playing different music and then photographing the crystals that formed after the water was frozen. This photo is of water being exposed to Beethoven's Pastorale. This photo is the effect of Bach's Air for the G string on the water. This photo is water exposed to Chopin's Farewell Song. This next photo is water being exposed and affected to music that was designed for healing. This photo is of water being exposed to the Kawachi folk dance. This photo shows the effect of heavy metal music upon the water. Here now we can compare the effects of healing versus heavy metal music and what happens to the water molecules. Mr. Emoto decided to see how thoughts and words affected the formation of untreated distilled water crystals by typing words onto paper and then taking this paper onto glass bottles overnight. This photo shows the effects of the words, "Thank you." This next photo shows the effects of the words, "love" and "appreciation." This photo shows the effects of the words, "You make me sick, I will kill you." And here we can compare the effects of "thank you" with the "you make me sick, I will kill you." Very, very different geometric forms being incurred through the intention. Now this photo is of a very polluted and toxic water from the Fujiwara Dam. Here now is the same water from the Fujiwara Dam after a Buddhist monk had offered a prayer over it. Prayer, with sound coupled with intention, seems to have an extraordinary ability of restoring water to its natural, harmonious, geometric symmetry. And in this photo we can compare the toxic water and then the effects of praying over the water.
Wow. So is that seeing is believing? So we have a little booklet that we've ordered. It's not come in yet, but it's called the 7-Day Mental Diet. How many of you? We've done this several years ago. Anyway, we want to give each of you a free copy as a gift when they come in. So the premise is how you can heal your body, your mind, your emotions by a mental diet of eliminating negativity from your life. I'm just going to read this one little thing here. And it goes on to talk about the great law of the universe, and advising you to follow this book. He said, then here's your prescription. For 7 days, you must not allow yourself to dwell for a single moment on any kind of negative thought. You must watch yourself for a whole week as a cat watches a mouse. And you must not, under any pretense, allow your mind to dwell in any thought. Dwell is the key here. Dwell in any thought that is not positive, constructive, optimistic, or kind. The discipline will be so strenuous that you could not maintain it consciously for much more than a week. But I don't ask you to do so. A week will be enough, because by the time the habit of positive thinking will begin to be established, some extraordinary changes for the better will have come into your life, encouraging you enormously. Then the future will take care of itself. The new way of life will be so attractive and so much easier than the old way that you will find you're mentally aligning yourself almost automatically. But the 7 days are going to be strenuous. I would not have you enter upon this without counting the cost. Mere physical fasting would be child's play in comparison, even if you have a very good appetite. The most exhausting form of army gymnastics combined with 30-mile routine marches would be mild in comparison with this undertaking. But it's only for a week in your life, and it will definitely alter your life, everything for the better. On and on and on. And the stresses that are about dwelling, casual thoughts of negativity that we all have at times, isn't going to do much to affect you in a negative way. But the thoughts that we dwell upon, and when we combine these thoughts negative or positive, with feeling, with deep feeling, we affect the molecules in our body. Because remember, we're 60-70% water. Some people say 75% water. So here it is. I have not made it through a week. I have not made it through a week. And I don't know anybody who has. But if you don't get this first week, try again. Keep on going. But it conditions us to look more for the positive in people. It conditions us not to judge so much, and especially ourselves. Because if this experiment with Dr. Emoto's experiment, that had a big impact upon my life when I saw that. And I thought, wow, that's just incredible. Now I remember reading a long time ago about Dr. Scheele. Dr. Scheele was a combination of a physicist and a chemist, what have you. And he was very much in tune with New Thought, which we profess unity to be. And he had a double microscope, so I could look into the microscope like here, and then another person would be on the other side of this and look through the microscope and see the same thing. And he got little protozoa, single-celled animals, if you will, little single on the slide. And he experimented with it, and you could see these little protozoa just circling around. Looks like it reminded me of sperm or something, just kind of circling around, going crazy. And then Dr. Scheele said, okay, so he read something very positive. He had a microphone and the transmitter was down there. He read something very positive. And all the little protozoa stopped their swimming around and formed a line, and they all came right over to him on his side. And then the other person would do just the opposite. Anyway, they had the protozoa going back and forth, back and forth. So the little single-celled animals, if you will, whatever they are, little creatures, little living creatures, moved back and forth depending upon the thought. And when he came out with it, people said, oh, that's not possible. And he said, yes, it is. This is the thing. So, okay. So anyway, that struck me so profoundly, that our thoughts have such creative power. Our thoughts mean things, all the thoughts that we think. And again, the casual thoughts, they used an analogy. They were saying if you were sitting before a campfire and a spark popped out of the campfire and it landed on your sleeve, if you just see it and you brush it off, then there's no effect. Clean as can be. But if you sit there and look at it, gradually it will burn into the fabric. And that's a solid thought. That's going to affect, this in case this affected your coat or your jacket, what have you. So again, the whole process is about thinking positively. So there's a little story that I came across and I thought it was apropos for today about our thoughts. So a successful businessman was growing old and knew it was time to choose a successor to take over the business. Instead of choosing one of his directors or his children, he decided to do something different. He called all the young executives in the company together, and he said, it's time for me to step down and choose the next CEO. I've decided to choose one of you. One of you here will be the next CEO. The young executives were shocked. But the boss continued, I'm going to give each of you a seed today, one very special seed. I want you to plant the seed, water it, and come back here 1 year from today with what you've grown from the seed that I've given you. I will then judge the plants that you bring, and the one I choose will be the next CEO. One man named Jim was there that day, and he, like the others, received the seed. But Jim went home and excitingly told his wife the story. She helped him get a pot. He got soil, he got compost, he's got fertilizer, and he planted the seed. Every day he would water it and watch to see if it had grown. In about 3 weeks, some of the other executives began to talk about their seeds and the plants that were beginning to grow. Jim kept checking the seed, but nothing ever grew. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks went by. Still nothing. By now others were talking about their plants, but Jim didn't have a plant, and he felt like a failure. 6 months went by, still nothing. In Jim's pot, he knew that he had killed the seed, when everybody else had trees and tall plants, but he had nothing. Jim didn't say anything to his colleagues. However, he just kept watering and fertilizing the soil. He so wanted the seed to grow. A year finally went by, and all the young executives of the company brought their plants to the CEO for inspection. Jim told his wife that he wasn't going to take an empty pot, but she decided to be honest about what happened. Jim felt sick to his stomach. It was going to be the most embarrassing moment of his life, and he knew his wife was right. So he took his empty pot to the woodroom. And when Jim arrived, he was amazed at the variety of plants grown by the other executives. They were beautiful, in all shapes and sizes. Jim put his empty pot on the floor, and many of his colleagues laughed. A lot of them felt sorry for Jim. But when the CEO arrived, he surveyed the room and greeted his young executives. Jim just tried to hide in the back. "My, what great plants and trees and flowers you've grown," said the CEO. "Today, one of you will be my next CEO." All of a sudden, the CEO spotted Jim at the back of the room with his empty pot. He ordered his financial director to bring him to the front. Jim was terrified. He thought, the CEO knows I'm a failure. Maybe he will have me fired. And when Jim got to the front, the CEO asked what had happened to the seed. Jim told the story. The CEO asked everyone to sit down except Jim. He looked at him and then announced to the young executives, "Behold, Jim is your next chief executive officer." Jim couldn't believe it. Jim couldn't even grow a seed. "How could he be the new CEO?" the others said. Then the CEO said, "1 year ago today, I gave everyone in this room a seed. I told you to take the seed and plant it and water it and bring it back to me today. But I gave you all boiled seeds that were dead. It was not possible for them to grow. All of you except Jim have bought me trees and plants and flowers. So when you found the seed wouldn't grow, you substituted another seed for the one I gave you. Jim was the only one with the courage and the honesty to bring me a pot with my seed in it. Therefore, he's the one who will be the new chief executive officer." So if you plant honesty, you will reap trust. If you plant goodness, you will reap friends. If you plant humility, you will reap greatness. If you plant perseverance, you will reap contentment. If you plant consideration, you will reap perspective. If you plant hard work, you will reap success. If you plant forgiveness, you will reap reconciliation. When you plant positive thoughts, you reap positivity in your life. So be careful what you plant now, because whatever you plant, thought, word, or deed, it will determine what you will reap later. Wonderful. So I have much more to say if you want to stay for an extra hour and a half. But anyway, I'll close on that. God bless you. Thank you. Now we're going to get to these things here. So if you want to, we'll just pass these around and you know, just have no judgment about it. You know, just follow your heart. But I would hope that you would, you know, follow what we're doing here with love and honesty and appreciation, and this one here with all the negativity. And if you don't want to think negative about it, anger, cancer, maybe if you have something you're holding in your heart, just release it into the rice. Is that right? Okay. So I'm going to start with Mom. And so you can just pass it around, spend your time with it, and we'll get on with other stuff. We're not going to stop.
Yeah, so I was going to actually do a little song. It's only a 1-minute song, but I want to set you up for it. And then as we send this around, then this will be part of the energy of the song can be put in there. Maybe we'll play it twice, I don't know. But we do have other things we want to get onto. But so what I want to do is to set you up, because this is a little bit of a tongue twister. The phrase that I want us all to feel this morning is to let our big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light shine. And the words are up there, but she's going to sing some other stuff, and then together we're going to do the big, bright, brilliant beam. I'll let my big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light shine, and don't be surprised if you fumble over that a little bit. But it's a good thing to be thinking about letting our big, bright, brilliant beam of radiant light